anybody can reach multi-generational wealth status on average incomes. And what it takes is like 2 or 3 generations of people who are going to mostly say no to themselves. And I think everything we're covering in this episode is a story of saying no to the immediate in favor of the benefits of long-term, kind of boring pursuit of big, glorious goal that you're maybe never going to see come fully to fruition even in your lifetime.
Run your home and your dough like a biblical boss. American culture, spurred by online and media culture, increasingly baits and rewards catastrophizing everything, making everything super emotional. Consider the students with reported mental illness or gender dysphoria get the attention, right? A high schooler who is conventional, heterosexual, Christian, and a successful student athlete can sometimes receive raised eyebrows now instead of the congratulations they've traditionally received. This is even true in churches where the fringe element seems to get more love and airtime than the mainstays of family life. But the Abrahamic leader is the antithesis of that mercurial, temperamental, cultural trend. He is a stalwart. He builds his family. He earns and saves. He is dependable. In short, to modernize, he's boring. I love the fact that our man goes unnoticed and unglorified by present culture, at least the public eye. But he is glorified here at Abraham's Wallet, though. We exist to educate and inspire this very kind of family leader. We host an Abrahamic online community that we call and today we're going to ring the gong for what VJ Tunkel, who is an regular, calls being slow and steady. He's been saying that lately, and I've picked up on it, and it resonates with things happening around my life. That is the spectacularly unspectacular character quality of humble persistence that the Abrahamic heart requires. So we're going to tell you today to be slow and steady at spending levels. Mark, you're going to give us some financial thoughts on being slow and steady at your spending levels. I'm going to talk a little bit about child training, being slow and steady there. You're going to talk about automating your financial strategies. And I'm going to talk a little bit about being slow and steady at building into your marriage. So that's where we're going today. Mark, how are you?
I'm good. I was just thinking as you were talking, I was taking a sip here and there of my limited edition, limited time run creamy coconut Dr. Pepper.
Since you told me about those, I have driven to Texas and back. I've stopped in every convenience store I can. Of course, I've scoured the shelves here in Cincinnati. I can find your creamy coconut nowhere. I've never seen it for sale.
Well, I was just thinking, I'm glad that we're done with our series on physical capital and health because I felt completely like I had to drink a sugar-free kombucha while we were doing those episodes. I'm glad to be back to my weekly dose of corn syrup with this one. But no, it's things are going well. We're in the summertime. It's a bit of a less busy period for our financial advising business. But it is a busy period for physical activity on the kid front. So I had a basketball tournament the evenings this week at the start of the week, and after we record this, it's a Friday, so I will be first placing a pork belly on the smoker,
Hallelujah.
driving an hour to watch a kids soccer game kind of up in the Park City area, past Park City.
Nice.
Hopefully then getting back in time for the pork belly not to be burnt because my daughters, right as we speak, are downstairs baking a cake, and we're having
Oh,
a
man.
listener, an Abraham's Wallet listener is coming through town, and we're inviting that family into our home for a Shabbat night.
Oh,
So
man.
it's going to be a packed evening, but hopefully a successful one.
I have to comment on that because we have had an Abe's Wallet family come to town for a week here, and you and I had the privilege on our recent driving tour through Texas. We met with all kinds of Abrahamic Wallet listeners, and it's always great to connect with these people. And I think every time we are with them, whether it is hearing from them online through or whether it's seeing people face to face. Boy, we have an impressive collection of people that have decided to link arms with us. It's really a pleasure to know some of these families.
Yeah, I agree. I think I was super encouraged. Just I was going back through the volley videos of our people, and I saw the video you put of the Texas pickleball event.
Yeah,
Um, and just there were kids running around, there were wives in the picture, and then a whole bunch of dudes. So it was pretty cool. And anytime I get to bump into our people, it's usually a blessing.
yeah. Well, any other thoughts on the topic before we launch into slow and steady?
No, I mean, you kind of introed in your texts to me about what we were gonna try to cover. You talked about plotting, and Doug Wilson, who's a pastor up in Idaho, um, I think he might even have a whole book called Productivity. But the
Mm,
idea of just, I say air quotes, boring, consistent behaviors. It's in some ways it is the fundamental thing we have been ringing the bell on.
sure.
Whether we're talking about physical capital, we talked about, it doesn't. I said to my wife the other day, I was like, I just wish that physical training was like money, where you could say, huh, I've earned enough now and it will fund all of our goals and needs.
Exactly.
I was like, could I go to the gym 20 hours a day for 6 months and then be done? No, I can't. I have. So some areas you have to plod. There is
Yes,
no alternative. But with money especially, and family, the two things we're going to talk about today, I just think there's so many traps that it's so countercultural. I played golf yesterday evening with a guy who told me he had been at the same company for 45 years. And he was an
wow.
older guy, coming up on 70, and I thought that's just unheard of in
Yeah,
our time. And so, um, I think that our current generation may have lost something here, which is why we're talking about it
yes.
on Abraham's Law, because the unsexy continuing to do the same thing in the same direction over decades leads to really good results, but it's not something that catches your attention on a TikTok video and says, this is how you can revolutionize your life in 10 minutes.
Yep.
We're going to tell you how to revolutionize your life in 80 years or less. Let's do it.
That's right. You're reminding me of a conversation I had this week with one of our Abrahamic graybeard father figures, Johnny Phipps.
Mm.
I have interviewed Johnny Phipps for episodes on Abraham's Wallet in the past. I was talking to him this week, and I was just, this is what I do with older men in my life. I just kind of talk through the things I've been thinking. And I said to him, this is a perfect example of what we're discussing today. I said, Johnny, I am a little bit torn on Juneteenth. It started in Texas, in Galveston. So it's a good Texas idea. It's the celebration of freedom from slavery. That's something we could all get behind. It's been a little politicized in the past. I don't know how it's being used today. I'm not sure where I stand on it. And his reaction to me was a text message that says, in writing this text, you have just given more thought to Juneteenth than I've ever given in my 66 years. And I think that's a picture of a guy who's just like, I don't give my attention to too many things. I'm giving my attention to what I'm doing with my family in my home. And that's kind of where my attention goes. I'm going to read something that I uh, have posted as a blog post. People can go to abrahamswallet.com if you want to read this over. Just kind of a manifesto, and it's called Slow and Steady. The Abrahamic family leader is a plodder. He's not a screecher. He's not a showboat. He's not a diva or a crybaby. The Abrahamic leader is a plodder. When the next political lightning rod comes along, he will calmly and confidently ignore it, as it will almost certainly have nothing to do with the attention of his focus. When there's a new book to burn or a new book to rever, he may miss the headlines altogether, for our man is a plodder. His Shutter's time lapse is set on generations, not the ephemera of days. His heart is synced to the slow drubbing drumbeat of eternity, not the scattered patter of a pop rhythm. His aim is on the rhythms and tools of the long haul, the slow and steady victory, not the baubles and disposable toys of the culture makers. He isn't pulled off sides by new causes and new doctrines. His are old causes: God, family, order, sowing and reaping. To him, the doctrines were settled by the wise long ago, and the only thing for a thinking man to do is stare at ancient truth and keep applying it season after season after season. As laws erode and morality ebbs and the hand wringers fret, our man carries on. He's not overly excited about new trends. He hasn't much hope in innovation or fashion. New dressings for old wounds, he might say. He occasionally has a good idea or a burst of creativity that meets with some success, makes his and others' lives better, but these are unplanned for hiccups. They are not his goal. The truths into which he sinks his teeth are eternal. The relationships he holds most dear are counted in decades. His money is engineered towards grandchildren, not the next payday. Some will say, as they have said all along, that he is not exciting, that even if his love is sincere, it's not interesting. Even if his character is dependable, it's not winsome, or not winsome enough anyway. He has no future as an influencer. He measures the success of his day by whether it will lead to success 10 years from now. He would rather be a river cutting a canyon than a flare gun with 30 seconds of glory. And our man is insensitive to such comments. He is not living for upvotes. He's not interested in the $1 million payday if it ends in divorce. He's not pursuing greatness in the moment that produces embittered children. He's not after apparent dominance masking actual dissatisfaction. The Abrahamic leader charts a course for the far horizon. The Abrahamic leader dismisses the cacophony in the immediate. The Abrahamic leader listens for the silent affirmations from the King of the ages. The Abrahamic leader is a plodder. So that's our manifesto for plodding.
I love that. When you were reading it, it was like Stephen has transitioned from fun humor writer Abraham Wallet guy to that was pretty stinking literary, man. I think that was like, well, let's go.
All right.
I just finished a book by the grandfather of Alfred Lord Byron, and read the journals that this guy wrote as he sailed around the world on exploring ships, and you kind of captured that tone. So I like your style, and content wise, man, could you have read a more countercultural narrative?
Right.
It's I was just kind of thinking like even the essay
Yeah,
doesn't
that's true.
doesn't hold your attention enough that I think we're gonna have a hard time putting that into a YouTube short and getting any play on it. But it's good. So, uh, thanks for putting that together.
Right. Well, let's get to tips. Talk to us about being slow and steady with one's levels of spending.
Yeah, I this is the thing that if you've been listening to this podcast for a while and you haven't just done it because you hate us and you like to get riled up. I have a few of those podcasts. But if you actually are on board with what we're selling here, I think that you're probably not the type of guy that's thinking it would be a good idea for me to uh, push my lifestyle and my spending to the absolute limits, even if that means getting a credit card and buying things I can't afford and just letting the cultural norms dictate my spending patterns. So I'm assuming maybe that if you're a 28-year-old guy with a little kid and a relatively new wife, you probably are in that mode of like we have created a spending plan and we're kind of faithfully doing some saving, we're generous, all of these things. But what I have noticed um, is that it's pretty easy to be disciplined when you have to. maybe you're paying off some student loans and it's like we have a clear target. It's not that far in the future. It might be 6 years in the future that we pay these things off, but it's not 80 years in the future. It's still something I can kind of get my head around. Um, Discipline kind of is simple there, and hopefully we've beat the drum loud enough that you go, well, I might see some Rolex that I want, but I don't have $15,000 of cash, and I'm not going to put it on a credit card and buy it anyways, even if they tell me I can, because I know that would be a bad idea. Where I think people often fall off the plodding path when it comes to their spending is when they get between the initial phase of being forced to abide by a pretty tight budget and save and doing things like that, and maybe the picture where they truly can, without being irresponsible, go make almost any purchases they want. We've talked about families with true multi-generational wealth, and we've talked about what families that have $1 billion that they're stewarding do with their money, and they don't stress too much if somebody decides that they're going to go buy a brand new SUV that costs $100,000. Um, However, I see in the middle space when let's say that you do get some success and some traction here, and you've got a 401k with $500,000 in it, you've got a good job, your mortgage is a reasonable percentage, you're a generous giving family, and you've got $150,000 in a taxable account that could just be used anytime, and you've got some ideas around the goals that you want to use some of that money on. But now the Rolex doesn't, the world would say, like, you can afford it. Why wouldn't you do this? You want it. And just to be clear, we've talked in the past about sometimes spending money on luxury is okay. Um, we're not here to tell you Rolex watches are bad. We're not here to tell you luxury vehicles are off limits for a Christian. None of that stuff is true. Uh, but what I will say is it's when we remove the stigma from purchases, maybe impulse purchases or things like that, that are pretty temporary in their benefit, meaning they just kind of benefit you, their enjoyment spending now. Um, if you don't have to borrow on a credit card to do things like that, the world will look at you and go, do it. Why wouldn't you? I think we see this a lot in the current retiree generation where they go, I have fulfilled my obligations to my children. I launched them out into the world. I gave them an education. All the rest of the money is basically like, if I get joy out of giving it to my grandkids, then I'll do it. But pretty much the purpose of all the rest of the money is for my pleasure. That's not how we think, and that's not how somebody who kind of is in this plotting mentality with finances thinks. I've said it many times, but anybody can reach multi generational wealth status on average incomes. And what it takes is like 2 or 3 generations of people who are going to mostly say no to themselves. And I think everything we're covering in this episode is a story of saying no to the immediate in favor of the benefits of long-term kind of boring pursuit of a big glorious goal that you're maybe never going to see come fully to fruition even in your lifetime. So I think how on this one, like, how do you make that decision when it's time to buy a car and you go, well, when I bought my last car 10 years ago, it wasn't a big choice. I had this much money and I chose a car that cost this much money, but now on paper, I could afford all of the cars. So which one should I buy? I think one of the best tools for this checking of the lifestyle expansion, is to not just say no to everything. Like, it's always a no, but to actually, with your wife, get fired up about what you can do in the future that maybe you didn't have the right to even set those goals back, but when you were stewarding a Roth IRA with $5,000 in it and trying to pay rent, you didn't really have the right to be weaving grandiose yarns about the multi generational wealth you were going to be stewarding. But when I was a newlywed, I thought, man, if I could pay for college for my kids, that would be a great way to bless them, to fund education. And then I got to a point where I went, man, I think we've got this one in the bag. Lord willing, we're going to definitely be able to pay for college. What if we could also do like a $20,000 gift when they got married to just help them get started in life? And then the Lord kept growing the wealth we were stewarding. And it was like, what if we could put a down payment on a home in this ridiculously high cost of living place we live for every single one of our kids and just say, it's yours, take it. And so on and so forth. To me, what that did is it didn't just say, don't buy the fancy car, which is a conversation I've talked about it on the podcast. We've been talking about cars lately. Um, and some of those nice cars are truly nice. So you go test drive them and you go, well, why not? And the best medicine for us has not been because we're disciplined and we decided not to, or we set some sort of arbitrary limit on our spending in that area. Instead, what we did is said, let's spend some time dreaming about just how cool it would be to have this impact on our family maybe 100 years from now when we're dead and gone. And that has made it so much easier for us to say, we're good with the Toyota instead of the Mercedes or whatever the thing may be. Or I can get a really cool watch for 250 bucks instead of 25,000. I get distracted on that stuff pretty easily, but the best medicine has been looking way down the line and saying, what goals do we have the right to even talk about now that maybe we didn't before? And let's get excited about that more than we do about potentially upping our lifestyle spending.
Yeah, you are reminding me of when in my early years of my marriage, we started marriage with debt. We tried to increase our income. And there was some point when I think we were pulling down, I don't know, say 125,000 a year. And our financial planner at the time kind of scratched his head. We had a meeting and he's like, "You guys keep spending as if you make 75,000 a year." And I was like, "Yeah, like we're very happy with our standard of living. We don't need newer, nicer stuff. We're good like this." And the delta between what our income is and what our spending is, that's good. We need that. We're trying to kill old debt and we're trying to uh, create a war chest for the rest of our lives and for coming generations. And I remember thinking we need to hold off on increasing our standard of living as long as possible. And that's when I started believing we're actually going to end up in a good place. We're going to be all right with those days. So they're pretty precious. Um, okay, I want to talk about real quick about child training, that staying slow and steady and plodding in child training. I simply want to say this: wherever you are in your child training journey, you're not done. It never stops. It's like you said, Mark, regarding physical fitness. You could get a blood test back and go, I love my cholesterol levels and my vitamin D looks good and all this stuff. And you don't get to go like high fives. I think we're done here. No, that was a report card and we're moving on. We have friends who do great with child training and their kids are delightful and they're full of life and they also obey and they're just well behaved. And only a fool would go, I think we've done it. I think we're done. So we can just coast from here. Um, at every stage in your child's development, we are training. Again, that's such an important word. We're not reacting. We're not looking to react to bad behavior and slam it. Um, the, you might have to do that occasionally, but what we're primarily doing is training. We're training towards something. So our job is to anticipate the next stage of our children's lives and train against it. You think your child is 18 months old. I think we might be ready to go out to dinner. We might could sit somewhere together. Well, we have to train against that. We have to set that expectation. Is it happening at home? And we have to think about that. I just say that for everybody who, you put some efforts in and you kind of go, do I have to do that again today? And I'm here as your friend with your arm around, my arm around your shoulder and just go, yeah, you have to do it today. We have to always remember the story of the cat who's waiting at the back door to get in the house. And usually you use your foot and go, no, not tonight, cat. But the one time that you go, what, you know what, I have to get, I've got both trash bags in both hands. Okay, the cat's going to get in the house. Let's leave the cat in the house. That's what the cat remembers forever. And he's going to pester you much more strongly because of the one time that you let him in. The exception is what gets remembered. So I'm begging parents today, where your children are today in their journey of life, which you are overseeing, be faithful today, be consistent today, and train them against where you're going. Don't let that ball drop. You might be doing good, or you might be doing bad, and you're so hopeless. I remember we had a young family come to Passover at one point, and they said, "We don't think that our young children can even keep it together long enough to like sit at the table and be civil for a while. We just can't bring our kids." I'm like, "Well, we wanted to design a Passover that would be good for them, but if you think that's they can't handle it, that's fine." And the 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 warning for a family like that isn't that you is to not throw up your hands and go like, "Well, I don't know, we've blown it here," but instead go, "No, we can make some small progress today. We can set some foundation stones that we can build on, and we're all in process. Don't give up. Stay a slow and steady plodder when it comes to child training."
That's good. So turning back to the pocketbook,
Yes.
I think that the next financial plotting move that you can do is really simple. Just automate your key financial moves. So you may have a written financial plan that says, here's how much you need to save in these different types of accounts. Um, you may have you may not be kind of in the spot where those are super complicated yet, but I would say that as a financial planner, I look at successful families, and most of them run their personal finances in a profit first manner. So I don't know if you've seen that book, Profit First, but it basically says a business owner should pay themselves first, because the mentality of just kind of using what's there and seeing what's left over afterwards, there's almost never that much left over. You will spend what you got, and that's true in personal finances too. So the profit first mentality when it comes to funding kind of your key financial goals could be as simple as, I mean, you already do it on things like your mortgage. My guess is your mortgage gets paid each month, hopefully in an automated fashion. Most people are pretty good at this if they participate in their employer's 401k plan. So it's pretty easy to go, well, I signed up and then I kind of forgot about that money. So when I, in my brain, think about what's available to spend, I don't even consider that 401k money because I forgot what I set it at, but I just don't see it. And that's good. You can do that with all of your financial goals. So you could say, hey, we have a key goal of this much when it comes to generosity, and we may not set up an auto draft to just go to the church house every month, but we want it to kind of disappear from our accounts. So we're going to set a transfer out to a separate generosity savings account for us. You could do this with other types of long-term savings that you're doing. So, hey, the annual limit for a Roth IRA is 7 grand. And so I'm going to fund 1/12 of that every month. And at the end, I'm just going to have funded my Roth IRA. And I didn't really think about it because it just came out on the first of the month. Um, Pretty straightforward. The only thing I would tell you to be careful of is some people start this when they're 24, and they say, man, it would be great if I could just participate in my 401k and then get the muscles starting to strengthen with a Roth. But I can't do $600 a month into a Roth. So I'm going to start with $50 a month. And I sometimes talk to families who get much further down the road and they go, we're just still doing that automated savings. I'm like, well, you're going to have like $750 in your Roth at the end of the year at the rate you're saving. So I'm glad that you've trained the muscles sort of, but going back to our physical capital series, we don't recommend that your deadlift be just the bar after you've been training for 5 years. That we need to increase the weight there. And so just something to be aware of. Sometimes those automated amounts, you might say it needs to be a percentage of my income. You might need to say it's a specific amount for a specific goal. Um, but it shouldn't necessarily just be, I'm going to pat myself on the back because I've saved. We actually want to save according to a plan. And so whether that's a plan that you've made or something that you've worked with somebody to come up with, uh, automating the key moves to success will make everything, even if you don't budget, which I don't want, but it'll make everything else substantially easier because what's left is after you've funded those key goals.
Great. I hasten to add there, Mark, that Abraham's Wallet is listener supported. And if you want to make giving a regular part of your month, you can go to abrahamswallet.com/support, and you can join our team, and we can do tax deductible gifts that come out monthly. So I got to throw that in. So for our last point for the day, I want to talk about being slow and steady, pursuing closeness in your marriage. Uh, Pursuing closeness in your marriage, we've done entire episodes on the fact that there's nothing more important to your family vision than your marriage. It's the most important relationship in your life outside of your relationship to God Himself. And pursuing your partner is such a key skill that has to be gone back to time and time again. It's just like child training. You can't say we've arrived. I had a great weekend with my wife. I guess we're done. No, you're not done. What I would ask you, what was great about that weekend? Okay, take notes on that. Now, when are you going to do it again? Let's put it on the calendar. We recommend something like having a date night and whatever rhythm works best for you. Maybe that's monthly, and you're going to put a night on the calendar. You might need to put a fund aside that's going to be the babysitting fund. That's for date nights because this is important to us. It's definitely more important than transitioning your sedan into a luxury car. Definitely more important than that. Should be very high on your list to maintain closeness in your marriage, which means pursuit. So these things don't have to necessarily be romantic, although we applaud any nods in that direction. They don't have to be romantic. What they have to be is consistent. So I'm here to champion you being the slow and steady Abrahamic leader when it comes to closeness in your marriage. Always see this as something that requires maintenance, just like exercising, just like getting good nutrition in you, just like pursuing God's word. That has to be a regular thing in your life. And you could have a mountaintop moment with God, and you could have an open vision of heaven. And that's not going to matter 2 years from now. You're going to need to be consistent in pursuing your relationship with God. You need to be consistent in pursuing your relationship with your wife. So I'm here to just underline that as a fourth area where we have to be plodders instead of looking for what's the great fireworks moment that we can have. Those are great. They're just not going to sustain you. There's plenty of divorces out there that had wonderful mountaintop experience, but there wasn't a consistency of pursuing the spouse. So those are the four areas, again, that we wanted to hit: spending levels, child training, automating your financial moves, and building into your marriage. Our call to action today is pretty simple. Feel affirmed. If you are consistently doing your thing and you feel like, whoa, where's the spice in my life? I want to sprinkle spice on your life today just by telling you, in the name of your generations, in the name of the kingdom of God, keep going. And you might want to pick one of these areas where you might have lost your edge or you don't have your eye on the ball and start it back up today. You think, I have dropped the ball when it comes to training the children. We do have the opportunity to automate our giving or our saving, and I haven't clicked that button because it feels a little scary to me. Do it. Pick one of these areas, and maybe it's scheduling the next date night and go like, it doesn't matter if I feel like I like my wife today. That's not the question. The question is, I'm going to be devoted to this covenant for the rest of my life, so I'm going to pursue her, period. We'll see you next week. And until then, you stay slow and steady and keep plodding.